Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we'd like to welcome Maulik Oza from Ahmedabad, India. He is an architect and an artist who was trained at the CEPT, Center of Environmental Planning and Technology University in Ahmedabad. It's a university with a very strong culture. It was established in the 60s by the famous Indian architect Balkrishna Doshi, who actually won the Pritzker Prize, two years ago in 2018, the highest recognition that we have today of architectural excellence. Oza is part of that culture. He works now as a ceramist or ceramic designer. With an architecture heart, of course, and currently he runs his own studio, MO Ceramic and Design. And before that, he co-founded the Clay Club Innovations in India, another excellent architectural studio that merges, design solutions with emerging material and construction methods, technologies. Culturally, architect Oza is an extremely conscious and responsible architect. He combines craft, which is timeless, with modern technology, which develops and changes on a continuous basis in order to come up with design solutions that answer today's needs. He has passion, and I think this has to go back to the roots of his education and definitely his own life trajectory as an architect within the architectural culture that developed since the 1960s in CEPT or in Ahmedabad. His passion in using or recreating materials and details to answer, much bigger questions inspires his work. As Oza talks about himself, he loves to work with his hands, which is, I think, a common feature, that, all artists and craftsmen or craftspeople in general share. And he enjoys, the magic that clay actually, brings before his eyes. He says also about his work that, once clay, fresh clay is fired, that is, a very contemplative journey, and I think for him, or as he actually says about himself, art and architecture are the proof of any, of the existence of any civilization. And I could share that with him as well. Clay is one of the oldest material that mankind used everywhere, and to see it in a modern context is an eye-opening experience. And with that, I'd like to welcome Oza and invite him, to take the floor.
Thank you, Adif. It is, and thank you, Mohammed, for giving me an opportunity to present my work on this platform. It's an honor to be able to present on this platform. Presentation title itself, it says that where material meets design. It's actually come from, the name is actually of our studio, which me and my colleague Vishnu, my friend Vishnu, are taking a studio course in Pvt University where I studied, where we actually talk about material and the sensitivity of handling the material while designing buildings, or in that matter, any product or furniture. And this whole presentation, if I talk about, it's kind of my journey as an architect or ceramist. And it starts from 2005 when I joined Pvt University, as you mentioned, founded by P.V. Doshi. And till now, like whatever I have done from 2005 to 2020. And if I give you a brief summary of this presentation, it's a simple three-part presentation where I'm showing, in first part, I'm showing the campus life, where it all actually started. In middle part, which is the major part of my work right now, which is Clay Club, where I worked for 6 years. And after that, many of us diverged into our own practices and started our own studios. This is the image which is very close to me actually. This was the first piece which I made in clay. Actually, in our basic design course in Pvt University in School of Architecture, we had these two professors, Mickey Desai and Walter D'Souza. They were very worried about my sketching skills in design, and they were like, "How is this boy is gonna survive in design field with this kind of a sketching ability?" So, and then afterwards, in middle of the semester, when they introduced clay, and I really enjoyed working with it, and I could actually express myself more in three-dimensionality than the sketching. So this was the first piece which I made in clay, which was actually end product of one exercise which started with a graphic design, and you work with letters and then abstract some part of the letter and recreate patterns. And from this pattern, you get into 3D, and then from 3D, you get into a three-dimensional clay sculpture or object. Then that was the in basic design course. After that, like me and other friends of mine who were interested in working in this kind of material. So apart from academics like studio environment, we used to, on campus, we used to work in many different materials. And we used to, let's say, call different artists to come and take the workshops and teach us how to work with different materials. So in one of the festivals, we called Walson Kolleri to take a terracotta workshop, and then Anupam Chakrabarti for paper making workshop. After this workshop got over, like some of us got hooked up with material like clay, and some of us got hooked up with paper. And then even the workshop got over, we continued working with it and continue exploring this material. So, and then you can see this image in which like there are students working in that area. Actually, that area was on the campus. That area was a no man's land. It was a kind of a dump yard, which we cleared up, all of us, and then started working and started exploring material there. So it was a kind of an open place for any student or anybody to come there and explore material. So people were doing pottery there. Some people were doing paper making. Like we were recycling actually all the paper waste from the school. Like when the juries gets over, there was a lot of paper waste which is collected in design and architecture schools. So we used to collect it and recycle it and make paper again, or make paper bricks and different things out of it. Then we have an architecture study in our university. After third year, we have to go for a training in one of the architecture firms. So I went to South India in Habitat Technology Group, where they mostly work in bamboo and ramders and earth construction, mud construction, which I was really fascinated with. And always I was interested in working with hands. So I got to learn some few things about bamboo and how to work with bamboo. When I got back to the campus for continuing my study in fourth year and fifth year, we came back and we actually built that area where we used to work. There was no shelter, there was no shed on top. So we actually built a 1G+1 structure of the whole bamboo. And so this was a kind of an extra part of the activities. It's not part of the studio or academic schedule. But still, we would like, it was really fun that even if this kind of things, activities were taking place on the campus, professors were always encouraging. So when we finished the building, we actually called our dean. This is Professor Chaya on the orange shirt, to inaugurate the building. It's like you are inaugurating any new building which you have constructed or which has been constructed or designed by you, let's say. So, and then on the right bottom part, you can see MP Ranjan, another professor of ours from NID. He has done extensive work in bamboo. He's done a lot of research. So we used to call him. So this is kind of an informal jury, which we used to create. So they come there, they examine the building, they will give you a credit. So it's kind of a learning while learning outside your studios in extracurricular activities or whatever you can say, and still being part of this whole working with hand and designing and making of it. That also brings back to this. We made some pizza oven and baked some pizza. I remember we had an international vernacular conference in our university, and the school actually told us that if we can make pizzas for all the delegates who have come from all the other places, and we on that day we baked some 75 pizzas. That was I think I haven't baked that many pizza ever in my life. Then this is the kiln which was lying on the campus, and I was more inclined towards ceramic after those workshops which we attended in clay. And for ceramics, it's like without the kiln, you can't do anything. It's the heart of the studio or a heart of the medium. Any ceramic, you need to fire it to make it harden and to make it long lasting. So kiln is essential tool. So there was a kiln, but it wasn't in use. So we actually got it in, dismantled the whole thing and restored it and started using it on the campus. So this was the first kiln which I built on campus. Then all these things were happening outside academics, but it was part of the college life or campus life, you can say. But then how do you connect this academics to, how do you connect all this learning to the academics back? So for that, for my graduation project also, I started with the same place, which is, we used to call it Clay Club because it was a kind of a club where student comes and works there and just do activities or explore materials which they want to. So I remember, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, that we used to recycle paper waste and make them into a brick. So from that, the idea got generated, and we were like, I was thinking about how the waste is getting recycled. People don't know much. I think I'm talking about in my place, like when the waste goes out of their house, that's the cycle is over. They think that it's gone, but it's not gone. It's actually getting dumped at some of the dump sites, and there are mountains of waste. And I remember the data. If in 2012, as per data, there are 2,000 tons of waste every day getting generated in Ahmedabad city. There was nothing you can do about it. There were some recycling plants, but it was not like outside of the city, and people don't know. So the idea was to actually bring the awareness into people that what happens to their waste. So the concept was like that I took a site in the middle of the city where the riverfront is. So Sabarmati is the river which divides the Ahmedabad city into two parts. And I wanted to make a building which is more iconic, where people can look at the building and they see that they want to come and visit the building to see how the waste is being recycled and what are the things you can do. I will not go much into the details of the plans and sections, but these were the kind of basement plans and the ground floor plans which I created the building. And for building also, the material to build this building was also a waste, because I wanted to use the whole philosophy of this recycling of waste into the construction of a building. So for the construction, what I did was use the plum concrete, which is like all the waste from the building materials, all the demolished building materials. You crush them and mix it with concrete and pour it like a plum concrete in a concrete frame. So that also, it's basically, when you're designing anything, it's about celebrating that material which you are working with, and actually allowing material what it wants to be. So this was kind of a academic life, campus life, you can say. And after that, like in 2012, when we graduated, we thought some of us got together, and we didn't want to go and do a practice like a normal architectural practice where you have to sit in the office and work on computers all the time. We wanted to work with hands. So 6 of us got together, like Vishnu, Pranav, Fullu, Nikunj, Veena, and we found a company from that same name, a Clay Club. We found a thing called Clay Club Innovations Pvt Ltd, in which so after graduating, the first thing we did was we found a small shed in the industrial area, a semi-industrial area near my place, where everything is available in surroundings. Like you get all fabricators, all carpenters, all other machining work guys and everybody. So whenever you are prototyping something, it gets really easy. It's like an in-house facility, but it's again an individual people who are working on their own business. They can go and quickly get things done. So under this Clay Club head, we mostly work in these three major parts, which is architectural ceramics, collaborations, and architectural projects. So in architectural projects, mostly it was an individual who is working on the project, because it's very difficult to work on the one project with 6 people getting involved into design. And other two, architectural ceramics and collaborations, it was kind of a teamwork. If I'll start with architectural ceramics. And so when we started doing the projects, to get the business rolling, we had to do a lot of, like, we were interested in customization. So, and people used to come for mostly customization, because regular tiles and everything in ceramic are available in the market. But what people cannot make in ceramic, all the factory guys, that's what we used to make. I remember these are these murals which we did for some of the clients. So this was the first mural we did. One of our friends designed the graphic, and then we actually painted the whole thing. So there are basically ready-made tiles, and you paint glaze. The glazes are kind of a glass mixture which melts and gets the color on the tiles. So if you're aware of the ceramic tiles, you have this glass coating on top. That's called glazing. So this is the first Adam and Eve mural which we did. This was another one which was really amazing, kind of a water painting thing. So again, you have the similar tiles, but in the other first one, you had a very blocky image, like the graphic was done that way, where in this one, it was more kind of watercolor painting. So, but everything is done in glaze. The advantage of ceramic glaze murals are that it doesn't, the weather doesn't affect the ceramic tiles. The color doesn't fade away. The sunlight, rain doesn't affect anything. So you can put it in exterior and it will not fade away. This was another one which we did, which was this was the biggest one, which, and that time I think we did, which was inspired by, of course, MC Escher, and you can see the tessellation. So this was quite a large project in terms of, it was 5 feet by 20 feet, so 1.5 meter by 6 meters in height. This is another one, another technique, which is called graffito. Yeah, another thing, like in this presentation, even though I'm being an architect, being an architect, I work a lot of work. My work is mostly in ceramics and architectural ceramics, and I have one project, couple of projects I've done, which I'm going to show you in the end. So this was kind of a graffito technique. So you have one colored clay beneath, you make the tiles, then you apply another coat of another color clay. So there are two, like one layer of is on the, like you can see the red color is on top of the gray color. So when you score the red color, the gray will come out. And the one, when I was doing this small part of the mural in the workshop, an interior designer visited the thing, and then she was like, can you do this for us in the mural? And we can, so we did this mural for their company logo. So after firing, it looks, actually in the image, it's very difficult to capture this because all the lines are very intricate and it's very close by. So it creates an elusive pattern, but there is a qualitrol which is written in the center, which you can't see. So that was kind of a concept they had, that we want to have a logo, but people should be able to find it. I mean, it should not be directly visible. Then we did a lot of statues, small bust heads. So these are Buddha statues, fired in a very interesting technique called raku. Raku is a Japanese technique of firing ceramic artworks or ceramic pieces. In normal ceramic firing, what happens is when you fire the pieces, when the glaze is melting, you have to cool it down for the 24 hours or 20 hours, depend on the kiln size. It slowly cools down and then it gets fused. But when especially in raku, when the glaze is melting at 1000 degrees, we open the kiln. So it's like when it's red hot inside. You can see the glow on the face of the Buddha head here. You take it out and put it in sawdust. So when you put it in sawdust, the carbon gets generated, and that carbon, and because of the thermal shock, the glaze starts cracking, not the piece, only the glaze starts cracking. So and the carbon starts penetrating into the crack. So that's why you get this black and white crackle effect, which you see in the center image. And the other two images are the copper glaze. So copper is a material which gives green color in oxidation and red or copperish color in reduction. So whenever you reduce copper-based glaze, it will give you a right side kind of image. And whenever there is no glaze applied, that whole body is open for the carbon penetration. That whole thing becomes black, which is the first image. Then we did a lot of hand-thrown, like wheel-thrown wash basins for the some customized projects. Some gargoyles we did for one of the projects in Goa for fountain. So it was like kind of a project. Our motto was at that time that we will do everything which the ceramic, like the factory guys will not be able to do, let's say, in ceramic. This was another customized mural we did for N Black Studio, where the client had a brief. Generally, mostly in this kind of project, they come up with a blank wall and then some ideas. And then we work on the ideas, we develop the graphic, we develop the technique of what kind of ceramic we want to, or what kind of technique we want to go with. And then we give them a sketch idea, do some sampling, and then execute the whole project. So this was the kind of a customized mural we did. After that, with the same architect, the previous mural which we did for N Black Design, Jwalant Mahadeva, he had a requirement of a ceramic facade. So we started designing it. One of the friends designed two more, and he had a brief that the module, it has to be a modular, a repetitive, and he should have a certain kind of a freedom where he can play with it. So we came up with the two modules, mostly, one with the ridge and one with the valley. And they are fired in gas firing kilns. That's why you get this different kind of a texture. And this is the kind of installation which was there for the facade. So these are the two modules which we designed, one with the ridge and one with the valley. You can see the dimension. They are 10 inches by 10 inches, 254 by 254 mm. And it's kind of a box. It's a hollow box. So while designing, we actually never gave a thought on thermal insulation. But after designing an installation, we actually got to know that it actually makes a difference, a lot of difference in hot climate. And because there is an air cavity behind the wall and the ceramic facade, there's a 5 degrees difference from outside temperature to inside temperature. And again, you can see in the right side of the image that with these two modules, there are multiple permutation combination you can do with. So, and then architects have the idea is to design a module in such a way that the end user or architect also has a freedom to use that in his or her own way. So it's not like you're designing something and it should be used in only one way. But in this case, you can use it in a different, multiple ways. This is a simple assembly system which we figured out. And again, you can see there were no much sophisticated hardware we used, but we simplified everything and got it manufactured in the same locality where we had our studio. So once the wall is ready, you have this two members, metal sections running on the wall for the levels, and then those clamps which you see on the side. Those clamps come and they get screwed on those metal sections, and then this module gets inserted. Now the module is only hung from the top. So rest of the other bottom two clamps are for another module which will come down or on the side. So after finishing the project, it looks something like this. So you can see that even if it's a simple module, you can have a lot of patterns. And when the sun casts a shadow, you can see these lines and everything. It exaggerates the whole shape and facade really nicely. So this was the kind of a ceramic facade project. And then what happens is like this kind of customer project comes and then it becomes a product for us. So then we have this ceramic facade became a product for Clay Club. The second one, the project again, one interior designer from Bombay wanted a screen in ceramics. Like we have a lot of screens in hot and humid climate they use with the brick jalis. And if you have heard of Laurie Baker, he has used extensively bricks in terms of the screens and in South India. But there was not much exploration happen in ceramics, like in glazed ceramic jali. So this is the one photograph which I've taken from when it's loaded in the kiln. And this is the jali which we came up with for that project. So these are kind of a ceramic jalis. They're hollow from inside. They are made with a technique called slip casting. Mostly in ceramic, all the commodes and all the wash basins and everything, they are made in this kind of technique. So what happens I'll show you the kind of a small process of this same manufacturing of this. We used to call this design a quadrupole, and the dimension of this particular piece is 300 by 300 mm, and the thickness is 45 mm. You can see the groove on the side that was given for the dry fitting. So there is no mortar needed to fix them. There are these grooves where the vertical rods, iron rods goes into the frame, and then you insert all these screens one by one in whatever design or whatever orientation you want to put in. And the last member comes on top, and that becomes the whole screen, which you can fix it in any area of your house or building. This is the simple process which I'm showing here. So in any design, we make the original piece, first piece in wood or on MDF. Then we take a mold of it, which is you can see in the second image and the third image. So this is the mold is made up of plaster of Paris. I don't know how many of you are aware of this kind of terminology and the materials, but I'm just, if you have any questions, you can just note it down. I'll be happy to answer them and after the presentation. So once the mold is ready, we pour liquid clay into that mold cavity, and we keep it for some time. What happens is when you pour the liquid clay into the mold, the plaster of Paris starts absorbing water from the clay, and the clay will start sticking to the surface of the cavity. After some time, so how much ever time you keep it, the more time you keep it, the thickness will be more. The lesser time you keep it, the thickness will be little less. So we have to come to we have to fine tune the timing. So after 15 minutes or 30 minutes, let's say, we take it out and we get the 4 mm thickness. Then every time we get the same afterwards. So once the thing is once the 15 minutes is done, you pour back the excess slip which is inside the mold. And then you keep it for 2 hours for it to dry and shrink a bit so it can release from the mold. And the last image which you see, these are the jalis which are being casted. And then once it is casted, then you keep it for drying for 1 week or 2 weeks, depends on the weather. Once it dries, then you put it in the kiln. So first firing happens, which is called a bisque firing, which happens in 900 degrees or 1000 degree temperature. And after that, we apply glaze, again, that ceramic coating, which melts and becomes the glass kind of a coating, which you can see in the after firing picture. So for the kiln, it's always amazing to see, like, there is always a surprise factor. There is always a kind of a excitement when you open the kiln, how it would be, even if you know the colors, what it's gonna be exactly. But again, there'll be certain variations, certain differences, which you always try to look forward to. And not always it's a happy moment when you open the kiln. This was one accident which happened in the kiln, because we keep all the jalis stacked vertically because we want to glaze it on both the sides. We can't glaze it on the bottom. Whatever part is touching to the slab, we can't glaze it, otherwise it will get stuck. So in this case, this might, like, because of some imbalance in the stacking or while shrinking, because this piece, the clay piece, shrinks 15%. So it would have fallen down in the kiln while firing. And because firing the molten glaze, when it gets stuck to other pieces, it was a kind of a domino effect. So this is the kind of disaster also you get sometimes from the kiln. This is another design of the same type of thing, but in this, the brief was that the client wanted air conditioning inside. So he wanted a sealed office. He wanted a transparency, but he doesn't want the air or anything to come in or out. So we had a glass piece in the center. So if you can, in picture, it's not visible, but there are 4 modules and the circular glass piece is fitted into the center to create one big 300 by 300 frame. This was another type of module, which is a smaller one. This is half of the, like that was the 300, 300. This is 150 by 150. Again, you can see in throughout all the designs, we try to design a piece which is 1/4 or 1/2, let's say, of the original pattern, which gives you a freedom of exploration and arranging them in a different way. So which also gives you a freedom to an architect or a designer or to an end user to individualize, or let's say make it to on their own, like a customized screen for them, even if the module is same. So a similar one, that was with the straight edge. This is with the curved edge. So another installation example on site. So some people do it with a wood. You can do it with a metal, and so it's a dry fitting, which can be removed. So whenever you are changing the place or things like that, you can easily take it out and take it to another place. Then we did some ceramic lamps for some restaurants. So these are the kind of ceiling lamps, hanging lamps, which you can see in the kiln. So for certain things, you have to also design the kind of furniture which you see where the ceramic lamps, because in the kiln, when you put all the pieces together for firing, it should not stick to each other. It should not touch each other while firing. So you have to keep certain kind of props to hang them in apart from each other. So that's what we did for the last, the first image, if you see. And these are some examples of where it has been used in some of the restaurants and in Ahmedabad. Then this was another interesting explorations which I was really interested in. It's called fire sculpture. Now for ceramic, as I said, the most important part is the firing or the kiln. Now when the kiln, if you're making something which is bigger than the kiln size, then it's very difficult to fire. So there's one artist, a Danish artist, Nina Hole. She has done, ceramic artist, she has done a lot of fire sculptures in her life. And from there, I got the inspiration to do one of the kind of experimentation in school, again, campus. This is the same place where we used to do the clay club thing in the campus. We got together with some students, and we took a 5-6 day workshop, and we built this whole clay sculpture, you can say. So once these are called fire sculptures because you fire them on site. They actually work as a kiln, and you just make it on site. If you see that brick pedestal, which becomes a firebox. Now you fire it from within, and it fires outwards. So once it is made, it looks like this. So we keep it for drying for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then we wrap the whole sculpture with Cerawul, which is a glass fiber, which is an insulating material for the kiln. So whenever you make a kiln, you use this as an insulation, and then you fire it from that firebox, which you see in the last image. And the firing goes on for 30 hours. So we work in shifts. So first, like some people are working day, like they're stocking the wood. So we start with gas, and then slowly we change the fuel to wood, because to reach the higher temperature, the wood will be more useful than the gas in this particular kind of a sculpture. And once it reaches the temperature, again, it's a celebration time. So same way we do raku for the small pieces, we actually open unravel the whole, we remove all the layers of the fire, like the insulation, and you can see this red, hot, glowing sculpture in place. And then we put some sawdust onto it, and just it's kind of celebrating the material technique or sculpture. And we did another experimentation with the same technique, but this time we made an arch. So that was just a sculpture, but this you can also use it like kind of a architectural element. So and again, they are fired on site, on place. So wherever you have to install it, you just go there, make the sculpture, put the serraule around, fire it, and then it's done. After this, we took a lot of workshops. Like we used to take a lot of workshops in this time. So the idea of the workshop is like we always believe that it's always good to share the knowledge. Whatever we know, we want to give it to the students and the community of design. And the thing is that I personally feel that slowly people are like really detaching from the material. They are not really they are not designing with the material. So it's always good to work with your hands. That's what I feel. And this was the workshop which we took for Manipal University. There are many students came, and we did a terracotta workshop. This was another workshop which we took for Singapore Technical University. Those guys came to India for a visit. So we had a long plan for them. We actually took them around in the Ahmedabad to show all the good projects of different architects. And then they worked for 2-3 days at our studio, which you can see on the top right image, Clay Club Innovations, where we used to work in ceramic and paper. This is another workshop, Manipal University we did. Then on the right top, you can see we used to do some demos of raku firing to just get like some kind of awareness for the people who are very new to this material called ceramic. They always have this notion about ceramic that there are tiles and only the tiles are made in ceramic, but there are many things which is possible. So those are the things which we used to do. On the right bottom is the paper making workshop, which we took for the Surat University. Then we did also some collaboration with different institutions. So this was a project we did for with DICRC, which is a research cell in CEPT University itself. They research on the crafts. So they have a fellowship program where David Gray, a ceramic artist from Scotland, who came to CEPT to do a fellowship there. And at that time, we had a ceramic studio set up. In CEPT, there was not enough facility to work in ceramics. And another people were the Gond artisans. Now, Gond artisans are from the center of India, Madhya Pradesh. There is one traditional art called Gond painting, which happens. There is one style, intricate style of paintings, which you can see here on this image. So, and they always used to do these paintings on the paper or inside the house's wall. So even though it can be scalable, it was not really possible to do it outside because of the paints getting washed away and things like that. So we thought that if we can transfer that ceramic, that Gond paintings onto ceramic tiles and come up with some kind of murals or a design which can be used in exterior, then the Gond artisans or Gond art will have a lot of visibility in terms of, like, it can be put in any exterior of the building and it will stay as the same. So this is David in this picture you can see, and those, I forgot the name of this guy. These are two of the Gond artists who came and painted. So David made the mural, which you see on the right side. He made in clay, and then those people who drew the lines and with their specific techniques and their specific colors. You can see they use really bright color. So it comes out like a very vibrant mural. And this was the final installation we did in new IIM campus in Ahmedabad. Then I'll come to an architectural project, which I want to share with you, which I did for one of the artists, Alpesh Gajjar. And again, like when I was doing an architectural project, my thing was to explore things and get to some new techniques, which I saw in South India, which I'll come to in the next slide. So this is the basic plan and sections of that project. It was a very simple, small project. Simple plan, as you can see, like there are two bays, one for the larger studio, because this was an artist residency or a studio. So he wanted that area to work on the sculptures or large paintings and stuff like that. And the other side is kind of a utility area where you have office, you have a pantry and small bathroom and washroom and things like that. So it's a very simple plan. So in this, what we tried was doing this filler slab. I don't know how many of you are aware of this method of doing the slabs. This was I think invented by Laurie Baker, a British architect, and when he worked in South India. Basically, when you cast a concrete, so there are steel in the bottom of the concrete, and the concrete is just to cover the steel. So the concrete which is in the bottom is actually just to cover the steel. It doesn't play any role in terms of taking any load. So you can actually remove that concrete, which is extra. So that's how this architect has done. They have put a Mangalore tiles while casting the slab, and then you pour the concrete. So wherever there are these spots or any filler material which is there, that's why it is called filler slab. Any filler material is there, it comes out from the ceiling, like they will get embedded into the concrete. So you have this slab. Once you remove the shuttering from the below, you will see the pots which are stuck in the ceiling, and you get a really beautiful ceiling, and you are saving the concrete. And for doing that, there were we thought that we will start with this, and yeah, it looks fun and we can do it. But while doing it, we figured out that we have to actually anchor each and every pot while casting it, because when you pour a concrete, it tends to slip away. So if you pour a concrete and everything will shuffle, you will not have a proper pattern or whatever you have designed. So you have to anchor all the pots in the place, and then you pour concrete. Even while pouring concrete, when they do a vibration to remove the air bubble, you need to be very careful that the vibrator rod doesn't touch to any of these pots. Otherwise, again, it will break. And once it breaks, it will remain there because it's going to get stuck in the concrete. You cannot replace it. So you can see in the first image, he's anchoring the pots. And then in the second image, this guy is leveling the concrete slab. And once you remove the shuttering, this is the beautiful sight you get. Like, we haven't done anything. It's just we have removed extra concrete and replaced with this terracotta pots, and you get this kind of a ceiling, which is, I mean, it looks beautiful. You don't need to do any other treatment on this. So generally, you save on a lot of plastering costs, you save on a lot of concrete costs, and you get a end result is also really amazing. These are some pictures of that same project. So you can see this is the office area for the client, and we have made a roof of that. Roof is again made up of industrial shed, a Proflex, like kind of a curved metal sheet, which are mostly used in industry, but we managed to get it somehow for this small project. This is some another views of same building. This is from the top where you can see the courtyard, and this is the larger on the right side. You can see this large volume which has been created mostly for painting and sculpture. And if you see those doors on the bottom, they are fully openable. So what happens is, like, it's open for in the plan. On the other side of the doors are also fully openable. So when you open both the doors, the whole space becomes open. So it can be also used for kind of an exhibition gallery or a get together or a party or things like that. In the first image, if you can see the door, that was, we actually got a local fabricator and designed a door which is a counterweight or uplift door. This is another way of using those old block prints into the handles, and like really getting into a small things of crafting each and every part of the building. It's fun. This is like this kind of posters. He's the client, like the artist. His grandfather used to do this kind of painting before the printing came into the picture. Like when the printing was not there, like this large scale, all the Bollywood film posters were actually hand painted. So this is one of the kind of posters which we found on the artist place. So that was the kind of work which I did in Clay Club for 6 years, more than 6 years. After that part, many of us diverged into a different areas and got interested into different things and started our own practices and our own offices. So idea is like, and after this, we also had to survive and do the business and keep going what we like to do. Because in most this kind of cases, what happens is that people start with what they like to do, but then there is no money rotation. So you can't survive in the field, and then you have to leave what you really enjoy doing it, which we don't want to, we didn't want to do it. So I started the studio where I started when I built the first kiln. After that, when we started the studio, we wanted a kiln for ourselves, but there was no supplier who was supplying a studio level, small size kiln, electric kiln, or a gas kiln for that matter. There were people who were supplying for industry, which were huge and which was not affordable for any artist. So I built my own kiln and got to learn about how to make kilns from the scratch. And then so slowly people started asking about those, okay, that if you can make it for us. So I started, like I designed electric kilns for ceramic artists and for pottery studios. So these are some of the images of those equipments which I have been designing and working on them right now. So these are the kind of fully automatic electric kilns, top loading for ceramics. These are same kilns, a larger size for front loading again for ceramics. And I enjoy personally working with craftsmen, metal fabricator guys, and work with them, know the limitations of those guys, know the limitation of the tools he has, and then design according to that. Because I feel it's very important for us to work with the people who are executing the building. We never, like in my training time when I was designing, my architect said a good thing that we never consider a labor-free design. We, as an architect, we draw something on paper. We never thought of how it's going to be made or how much effort that person who is going to build is going to make just because you have done something. You could have done it. You could have kept that in mind, that how it's going to be made, and it could have been easier for him to build the same thing. So I strongly believe that when you work with a craftsman or when you work with an executor, you can fine tune the design and make it much more efficient. So these are the slab roller machines which I was working with, which looks like this after the completion. These are very simple machines for making slab and for the pottery. Then, of course, we were working in ceramic studio where in Clay Club. But after that, I wanted to get into a little larger industry and production. So I have collaborated with one of my friends, Vivek Bhai, and he has a ceramic factory. He has a ceramic production where we are trying to figure out a large scale pot productions and other stuff where you can do it in a larger scale. And you can actually, because at a ceramic studio, you have a limitation in terms of a production, and the production cost also increases when you have a smaller production unit. when you have a larger production unit, you can actually reduce the costing and reach more people, because many people likes to use these kind of things, but because they are very expensive, they can't use it. So that's what I'm just trying to bridge the gap between industries and the studio ceramics and come up with another designs which are more affordable and efficient. So there are some pots which we have done. So I'm still working on more kind of a jalis and other designs with the same industries, and try to come up with another solution for ceramics and architectural ceramics. Then comes the last part of this presentation, where I'm right now teaching in the same university where I was studying. And the title of this presentation comes from the same studio name, which is called Where Material Meets Design. In this studio, what we do is that we start with the detail and then go to the form. Mostly what happens is in architectural designing, the process is like they start with the concept, then bubble diagram, then they come out the plan, after the plan sections, and then go into the detail at the end. But then people are not really focused on material and detailing, like making of it, or how that detail can affect your whole design. So we thought, why can't we just go back, like go other way around? We start with the details. You start with the material itself, start joining them, and then go back, do a reverse process, reverse designing process, and come to the form. So I did my research. This is also on the same theme, which says that there is one saying called form follows function, but I have said in that particular thesis, it's called form follows detail, because I feel that if you change any of the details, the form will not remain same. So I'm going to show you some projects of the students which we have done, which has been in last couple of semesters. So this was one student, Kriti, who has done a pavilion project. She actually started with one curve, let's say a one line curve, and she started and the material was wood. And we got interested into a kind of a steam bending process, how you actually bend the wood by steaming it. And then it actually, so she started with one arc, one module, and then started repeating it into different alterations. So there are different approaches for this. So you can see there are cross grids, there are grids which are overlapping, that are inverted. So one grid is down there and another grid is up like this. And finally, we came up to this kind of a system, which you can span. With a 60 centimeter arc, you can span up to a 10 meters. So then it doesn't stop at only designing the things. We actually encourage students to really make it and see how it feels to actually steam bend the wood. Because I feel that in academics only you have time to really explore things and like really explore materials and techniques, because many times it's not really possible when you are in a field or when you are in a practice to do all this kind of experimentation. So we encourage students to actually do it. So we actually build a steam box and the Ferma for the bending, and got the specific wood for steam bending. We bend the wood. So you can see the students who are actually working in the workshop to bend the wood. By doing this, they get a feel of the material. If you are not sensible or if you are not sensitive towards the material, you cannot come up with an efficient design. I personally feel that sometimes you can force material to do whatever you want, but that's an ego of an architect or a designer, which is guiding the design. But what my philosophy, or what me and one of my friend Vishnu, who is taking the studio, we both believe that the material should be asked what it wants to be. It's the same way like the Louis Kahn has said that Louis Kahn asked the brick, what do you want to be? And brick said, I want to be an arch. And that's how the arch came, and the whole project of IIM in Ahmedabad came up. So it's exactly same way. If you are not really sensitive to the material, then the material will be forced to do something which it doesn't want to do. And that's what we don't want. So you can see there are some images, the drawings of the same project. And we actually made this prototype 1:1 scale at the end of the semester. So then while making a one module is one thing, and when you are assembling it, there is another thing. So when you are assembling the parts, you have to calculate the tolerances, how it will behave. And those things are very important. And without doing it, you will never learn it. So it's for us, it's very important for as a tutor to inculcate this habit in the students at a very early stage, that they start engaging themselves with the material while designing, and they start understanding how it behaves and design accordingly. Similarly, there was another project, Charmi Patel, who did a Kinetic Facade. It was very interesting to see. She started with a ball and socket joint. It was like when we started the project, we were like really confused at where it can go, like how to lead this project further. And then she keep on exploring the different ways of doing ball and socket, how you make it and how it works, how it behaves. And she tried making some structures out of it. But the ball and socket is kind of a free movement kind of a thing, where to stabilize in a structure, it was really difficult. Then we thought, why can't we use the ball and socket joint, where it's in architecture, where it's actually allowed to move. Like you can take doors, you can take windows, you can take facade. From there, she picked up a module, and worked on it and made a kinetic facade, which can actually move, opens up and close. And it was really fascinating to see a second year student coming up with this kind of a engineering thing into the material. And she really enjoyed it while working with it. So you can see here in this image, the students are installing, like assembling the whole prototype, which again, we focus in the last part of the semester. So this was the closed part, and that was the open. So it rotates and in both the directions. This was the project by one of the exchange students, Felix. And this was again a very interesting one, where he started with one bamboo piece and a rope. And he was like that, I don't want to use any nails. I don't want to use any other fasteners, anything. I just want to make a structure with bamboo and rope. And how do you do it? And he actually came up with a module where all the members are like you can see these pentagons. So all three pentagons comes together and creates a dome. And he had a very interesting mechanism of tightening, like tensioning the rope by just inserting one peg into the rope, and you rotate it, and then everything gets little really stiff. And then in the jury, when we have a final prototype done, we call all the jurors in the campus. They come see the prototype, and we have a jury on the prototype itself and not in the studio in front of the drawing. Because we believe that once it's made, it's much more clearer than the drawings. Similarly, one of the professor, Sankalpa, is explaining certain things, because he also has worked extensively in bamboo. Yeah, so I think, yeah, this was it for, I hope I haven't gone too fast and you got to know, like you got to understand what I said in the whole presentation. And I'm still continuing, so that's why it is to be continued. We'll be working more and more in the same material and medium in my future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Oza, for this journey that you took. You took us with you, you know, from your school years up until now, and hopefully we'll, you know, while you continue your trip, we'll hear, you know, a lot of good things about you. I have a question personally.
Yeah.
A lot of our, many of our, you know, members of our audience and ourselves, you know, we remember our school days school. I mean, architecture school, like if it was yesterday, always. I want to know, from your perspective now, after so many years of practice and whatever you learned during school, on campus, how much of I don't want to say how much of not disappointment, but how much of change between the ideal situation when you learn about architecture and the reality of the situation in the field. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, it's a very different thing. I mean, it's always like, that's why, I mean, I remember when I was studying in the school is called School of Thoughts and not School of Architecture, because they used to teach us how to tackle a problem. Architecture, you will anyways gonna learn, like in 4 or 5 years. And once you come out of the campus and go into a field, it's a totally different ball game, because you are dealing with so many different aspects of budget, of clients, of the contractor who is executing the project. And sometimes in our place, like in India, there are many contractors who doesn't even read drawings. They can't read drawings. So you have to actually go onto the site and explain them how to do it. And if you don't know, then it's not going to work. And that's why it's very important for a student here. I don't know about in your place or in Europe, because there is a lot of there is a lot of specialization happens. So when the architect prepares the design drawing, it goes to a technical guy and he will put the details, and then it goes to a civil guy and he will start constructing and things like that. But for an architect in India, he has to know each and every part of the construction sequence and the building, because he will not find always a contractor who will be able to execute his design in the way he has imagined. So the campus, like the school education and the field is totally different. It's totally different.
I mean, it's all, of course, yeah, of course. But there's always a difference. But we hope no disappointment. There is one thing before I get to I have some audience questions, but in terms of architecture school curriculum, you cited or alluded to the absence of appreciation of materials. And I'm speaking to you from Saudi Arabia, and I went to architecture school here, and in the States. Really, I can say that I graduated from School of Architecture, but I can say now I was blind when it came to material. I had absolutely no appreciation of it. I probably read about material in books, and probably I was instructed about the standard practice in industry, which is dependent on manufacturing, and it's removed from everyday reality. I had to learn later on, or detox basically what I have learned.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you could say something about that, because I can see now that there is a period in the life of Picasso that they call it the blue period and the red period, when he used only one color to paint, and you basically focused on clay and ceramic almost all your professional life. Can you tell us how did that come about?
No, it's in terms of material exploration. So I was lucky to be in part of this university, because we have been taught in a very different way compared to because I have talked to other friends also. And maybe because of the kind of a practice which happens in India, I think we have been taught in aspects of, like the way I say it, that knowing the material from the beginning. So when you design something, for architects, it's not a white collar job here. Like people say that I'll draw a sketch and then it's gonna get executed. And I'm just a designer or an architect. I'll only design. It doesn't happen here. For me, from the beginning, I was interested in material itself, ceramic came into picture because of some other, like some workshops and stuff like that. But then it wasn't like, what do you call that? My inclination, I wanted always not to do only pottery, or let's say what people associate clay with. And I wanted to explore this medium into and connect it back with architecture and interior. So that's why you can see all the work which I have done in ceramics, or we have done in ceramics, is mostly going back to architecture. I hope I'm answering of your question, like in a right way. Atif?
Yes, I'm with you. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I hear you. I just had trouble with my mic. We have a question here from a member of the audience. Alice is asking you, do you think ceramic is better than porcelain and marble for the applications that you have presented, and why?
The porcelain is ceramic is actually a big subject. It's a big title, you can say. Porcelain comes under ceramic. So porcelain is kind of a part of, like what we work with is there are 3 types of clay: earthenware, stoneware, and porcelain. They are categorized because of their firing temperature range. So the earthenware is a lower temperature clay, where the stoneware comes around 1200 to 1250, and porcelain goes up to 1280, 1300 degrees, or more than 1300 degrees Celsius. Marble is a totally different thing. It's a stone. So this disadvantage with the marble is that you cannot mold it. It comes in certain shapes from the earth. You have to cut it in shapes and you can use it as a flat slab. Where in clay, in porcelain also I'm including into ceramics, you can really mold or form in any shape. So you can play around with shapes, textures, things like that. And once it is fired, it almost becomes like a rock. There is no going back. Ceramic is in that way, if you see, you cannot call it sustainable because it converts into an inert waste in a way. It doesn't harm anything, but it stays there for years after firing. Before firing, you can recycle it, but not after firing. So that's the difference between the marble, porcelain, and the clay, which you are like asking.
Okay, I have many questions of my own, but there is another question here from audience. It's actually about details of your technique. Aditi is asking about the inbuilt kiln on site, which you were talking about. Would the firing not be extensive on the inner area, that the outer surface of the sculpture, and would damage it?
No, so there is a specific kind of a clay which is used in this particular sculpture. So we call it grog, which is kind of a powder of fire clay, which you put it, like there are 30% of that into this. So what happens is when the clay cracks, it's because of the shrinkage, uneven shrinkage. So when you put grog, it reduces the shrinkage of the clay body. So for this whole structure, it's actually because of the grog and the technique of building it. If you have noticed in the images, there are these J modules. If you can see the windows in this arch, they're actually, all the joints are staggering. So even if it cracks from the bottom, where the temperature will be a little higher than the top, let's say, the crack will not actually go through the whole structure. It will stop at the opening of that one opening. So that's actually a really amazing technique which Nina Hall has developed throughout her life, and we have just used that same technique. So that's that is not allowing it to crack.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you tell us who is Nina Hall?
Nina Hall is I mentioned she's a Danish artist, ceramic artist, and you can check out her work. She's no more, unfortunately, and she has done like 200 or more than 200 fire sculptures around the world. So she goes to the places, use the same local clay, mixes with the grog and things like that, builds the sculpture, and her sculptures are like 15 feet high, 15, 20 feet high. They're amazing to see. Like you can just Google it.
Excellent. I have a question. Well, here in the Middle East, you know, it's the land of Adobe architecture. It is a tradition here, and but unfortunately, you know, with technology and advances in construction methods and imported materials everywhere, you know, we lost that tradition. And my question here is about the transfer of, you know, of knowledge that you created and you inherited from, you know, other ceramists and other architects. Do you think, or developed at SEPT, you know, from the 1960s? Do you think there is, you know, a way, you know, to develop this into a 100%, you know, structural solution, you know, for you know, for architectural projects? The tradition is certainly here. Yeah, go ahead.
Adobe construction?
Adobe construction, yes. Do you think, you know, the techniques that you developed could be transferred and maybe merged with Adobe construction to make it really a more mainstream, not a very niche? You know,
There are I think a lot of research which is already happening for this kind of mud construction. They're also 3D printing houses with mud. So, and you can do, of course, I mean, there are ways to tackle it with some issues. Like there is one architect who has done in Chennai. What they have done is with the bricks. So when you have a brick wall, only the exterior bricks needs to be fired, not the interior one, as he said. So it's like interior ones, you should not waste energy in firing that, because it's anyways protected by the outer layer of the ceramic, I mean the fired brick. So that way, if we can somehow manage the outer crux of the mud construction in certain way, or let's say with the fired clay bricks or things like that, then the inner construction can be easily used. But yeah, again, this kind of techniques, what happens is like people are getting more and more lazy. They don't want to maintain stuff, and these kind of traditional techniques needs maintenance. As you, I mean, even we have some in Gujarat, we have a traditional bonga houses which are made out of mud. But every year after monsoon, they need to replaster the whole thing from outside. But that's a ritual which they do it, and it survives ages. So it's not. But if you don't maintain things, it's not going to work in a way. What we are saying. And that's why it is not actually becoming the part of the mainstream architecture. That's where it is the problem. If we, I hope someday if we can find out some way to tackle in that direction, then it will be really good. Like in Yemen, we have like there are some 4-story mud houses, which is crazy. When I saw it for the first time, that was really amazing to see a mud construction that high.
Definitely in Yemen, in Shibam, you know, they call it the Manhattan of Arabia because of the it goes up to 9-10 stories, you know, using material like Adobe. Ragad is asking you about some, you know, a very related issue. Ragad Saggaf is asking if ceramic is a suitable material for facades, especially in extreme hot environments like in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf.
Yes, it is. It is a very good material actually, because it can withstand any time of any kind of heat, first of all. And it also sometimes acts as a thermal insulator. As I mentioned in that facade, you just provide a cavity, air cavity between the main wall and the outer side wall. And you will see a lot of difference in outside temperature to inside temperature. It's definitely, you can use it. Hello.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm back. Thermal insulation is a huge issue. Is a big deal, you know, for designers and users at the same time. in the Gulf and Saudi Arabia. Do you have any numbers or specs, you know, about the installation capacity of these tiles that you are producing?
We don't have like specific data right now. We need to get it done, but that, like on the site, we have checked when we were there in person, and it was very felt difference. Like I can say there was this 5-6 degrees difference, but we need to find those data. We need to actually get it tested in the labs to get approved that it acts as a thermal insulator.
Super, thank you so much. We covered all the questions that we got. We are very delighted that you were able to speak to us, Oza, and thank you so much for sharing your journey and bringing everyone back to Earth.
Thank you.
I will I will leave the floor to Muhammad to give us a conclusion.
Thank you, Oza, and thank you, Atif. It was an amazing and inspiring talk, actually, Oza. And again, thank you everyone who was with us tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Atif. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as usual, all of this will be, the whole meeting will be uploaded to ArchiNet YouTube channel. So it will be accessible to people who were not able to attend. And definitely a brief bio of Maulik Oza will be available there also as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.